home in St. Louis, Missouri, it's only fitting, I think, that we're here today in this historic old courthouse where the Dred Scott case was held in 1857. And at that time, it aroused public outrage over slavery. And here today, we are also taking steps towards ending what I would call modern-day slavery, sex slavery. As a former United States ambassador, I became very familiar with the horrors of human trafficking on an international level. I witnessed it, I reported on it through the Trafficking in Person reports, worked with our State Department, with our foreign host governments, with the private sector, and many to eradicate this. But never, ever did I believe that it was so rampant in the United States of America. It is in our neighborhoods, it is in our school districts, it is in our faith communities. Approximately 300,000 children are at risk of being prostituted in the United States of America, according to the U.S. Department of Justice. The average age of entry into prostitution in the United States is 13 to 14 years old. Human trafficking generates $9.5 billion yearly in the United States. And sadly, St. Louis is one of the top 20 cities in the country for human trafficking. This week, 2 separate individuals were convicted in St. Louis federal court of sex trafficking multiple victims, thanks to those in the criminal justice system for their due diligence and their hard work and efforts. In both cases, these victims, some of them as young as 15 years old, were sold in advertisements on Backpage.com. The problem is real. It is hiding in plain sight. Partnership on this issue is key. Partnership between the public sector, the private sector, with our criminal justice professionals, and with victim advocates. They truly are the men and women who are on the front lines, and they're here and represented today, and I'd like to acknowledge and introduce them to you, and I hope you'll have a chance to visit with them afterward. Katie Rhodes and Christine McDonald are here with us, both survivors that speak out about their experiences in the world of sex trafficking. They are 2 very influential advocates whose bravery inspires us each and every day. Katie Rhodes communicates about her experiences in the sex industry and the road to recovery back. We're going to hear from Katie in a little bit. Christine McDonald is also here with us today. She spent 17 years as a victim of prostitution, but now spends her days educating and advocating for the victims of human trafficking. She wrote a wonderful book called Cry Purple. Amanda Colgrove is here from our Rescue and Restore Coalition. We have Kimberly Ritter and Jane Quinn that are here and founded the Exchange Initiative and work for NICS Conference and meeting management. The Exchange Initiative, I can't say enough what these women have done. Their efforts to educate and to bring awareness to businesses in the hotel, in the convention area, in the corporate community, our educators, about the signs of human trafficking. They're one of the most effective ways, I think, to engage the private sector in a very important issue. They just hosted the first annual Ignite conference that was held here in St. Louis just a couple of weeks ago. I stand on their shoulders today. We're also joined by Julie Lawson with Crime Victims Advocacy, Tricia Rowland Hamilton with the Magdalene House, one of our many safe houses. And then our law enforcement community has turned out. I want to acknowledge Lieutenant Colonel Ken Cox, the Chief of Detectives at St. Louis County Police Department. Sergeant Adam Kavanaugh, Deputy Commander of the St. Louis County Police Department's Internet Crimes Against Children's Task Force, and Captain Jim Schneider. These men and their colleagues' work has led to a dramatic increase in the number of traffickers convicted and survivors that have been saved in the St. Louis region. Sister Patty Johnson is with us today of the Sisters of St. Joseph. Sister Patty brings a sense of moral purpose and direction to our efforts to combat human trafficking, and commands an enormous amount of respect in our religious community. She and the Sisters of St. Joseph's are true grassroots advocates. And any legislative office knows that if you are getting phone calls or emails from the Sisters of St. Joseph, you better listen. Pat and Sue Bradley are here from Crisis Aid International. Their work provides refuge and healing to the survivors of human trafficking, and it truly is an inspiration for all of us. I have been to their safe house. I want to thank them, all of them, and many, many more. They need our support. But when we talk about partners and partnership, Congress must also be a partner in this endeavor. As a mother and as an aunt of teenage girls, I am especially concerned that the victims be given a voice. They are not nameless, faceless children. They are our daughters, our granddaughters, our nieces, and our neighbors. They are the vulnerable youth of our society, the ones who should be protected the most, not exploited for money or greed. As legislators, we have an obligation to come together to do something because we can, because we should, and because we must. It has been 13 years since the United States House of Representatives has passed any new pieces of legislation dealing with human trafficking. And during that time, the problem has indeed changed and evolved. That is why I'm supporting several pieces of legislation on a bipartisan basis going forward that would address the problem of human trafficking on multiple levels. These bills would give prosecutors and law enforcement the tools to break up human trafficking and smuggling rings, boost support for victims' rights and services, create new reporting requirements so we better know the size and scope of the problem. And these are just to name a few. We have succeeded, I will tell you, in making human trafficking a major legislative priority in the House of Representatives in 2014. But there's another issue that demands legislative action on this topic. Over the last 10 years or so, prostitution has migrated to an online marketplace. Online classified services such as Backpage.com are used to advertise sex trafficking victims to the world. That's why today, just this morning, earlier today, I was in Washington, D.C., and I introduced the Stop Advertising Victims of Exploitation Act, SAVE Act, which will stop advertisers who knowingly profit from sex trafficking. The SAVE Act works by amending the Federal Criminal Code's offenses section to make it unlawful for Backpage and similar websites to knowingly distribute advertising that offers a commercial sex act in a manner prohibited under federal sex trafficking laws. The protections in the SAVE Act apply to underage children and those who are forced to engage in commercial sex acts against their will. The SAVE Act allows law enforcement to prosecute the websites that knowingly advertise sex trafficking victims. It applies to any form of commercial advertisement that knowingly leads to sex trafficking. This should, I hope, deter websites like Backpage from continuing to profit off the exploitation of trafficking victims. And ad research firm AIM Group, I will tell you, just to get a sense of the scope and magnitude of the costs and the money that's involved here, AIM Group says that revenue from the U.S. online advertising totals some $45 million in 2013 alone. We are going to follow and shut down the money in human trafficking advertisement. Now I'd like to turn to one of our survivors, a true hero. She's a victim advocate. Katie Rhodes, I will tell you, is the founder of the Healing Action Network, which is dedicated to providing outreach to the victims of sex trafficking. The SAVE Act is designed to protect people like Katie and others from being bought and sold like commodities. After being lured into a life of prostitution, Katie was indeed sold online. Now she works as an advocate, telling her story to educate about the dangers of the sex trafficking industry. I'd like to welcome to the podium Katie Rhodes.
Good evening, good afternoon. Thank you, Congresswoman. As Congresswoman Ann Wagner said, I am a consultant and advocate on the issues of human trafficking as well as a survivor of domestic sex trafficking. There was a time in my life where I was going through a pretty difficult time. I met a young woman. She offered me a different life, a better life, a way out of the life that I was in. And not that long after, I met her boyfriend, who I would later find out would be my pimp. Within about 72 hours, I met this young woman and I met my future pimp. And I was transported to California, where I began my journey in sex trafficking. By the time the grooming process ended, there was a little bit of a grooming process, whining and dining and making it look fun and exciting and less threatening. Once that ended, one of the first things that my pimp did was he put us in a hotel. He put us in a hotel, he got us out, got out a camera, took pictures, and posted us online for the sole purpose of selling sex. So I'm not a trap girl. I didn't walk the streets, I didn't go on the streets. I was sold out of nightclubs, magazines, and online websites. There are four main parts to human trafficking that we usually see. So we talk about the victims, we talk about the traffickers, we talk about the buyers, and then we talk about the third-party facilitators. And a lot of our efforts go to the first two, the victims and the traffickers. But we miss a huge piece of the pie, a huge piece of the puzzle, which that is buyers and third-party facilitators. As Congresswoman Ann Wagner mentioned, in 2013, revenues gained by selling human beings online were upwards of $45 million. Now, I don't know about you guys, but that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of economic incentive to keep this industry going. The SAVE Act makes it illegal for third-party facilitators to knowingly sell advertisements for commercial sex. It also gives prosecutors one more tool that they can use to hold all parties accountable in this industry. So I applaud Senator Ann Wagner for taking a stand on this issue, and I thank her and her team for being an active participant in ending this violence. Thank you.
Thanks, Katie. I wish you had time to hear from all of our tremendous advocates and supporters and partners here today. As I said, today we did in fact file the SAVE Act in the U.S. House of Representatives, and I'd like today to call to action the St. Louis region to get involved and take a stand against human trafficking. With my website, it's wagner.house.gov/not-for-sale. wagner.house.gov/not-for-sale. I'm asking all in our St. Louis metropolitan area and region to become citizen co-sponsors of the SAVE Act. I thank you all for being here today and participating. I thank all of you for what you do. Again, I say on the front lines each and every day. I'd be pleased to take any questions that you have this time. I'm sure others would be pleased to also chime in.
Well, what's been the most eye-opening fact that you've discovered through all this?
Well, probably that according to the U.S. Department of Justice, some 300,000 young children in the United States of America are at risk. As I said, it is hiding in plain sight in our neighborhoods, in our school districts, in our faith communities. And it's something that I dealt with at an international level, but didn't realize the magnitude of this hideous problem here in the United States of America. And it's been a privilege to be able to bring to the leadership table and have the support of my colleagues for the first time after 13 years, new legislation that evolves with this changing industry too. So we'll have an entire package of bills and legislation. Right now, we're working on those. I filed mine today. There'll be hearings, there'll be markups, and my hope is that it will hit the floor for voting early in May. My hope, fingers crossed, is that it will be in the week leading up to Mother's Day.
Congresswoman, you're likely aware that there have been some unsuccessful efforts to legislate, specifically against Backpage.com, where courts have overturned it, I believe, in New Jersey. Is this proposed legislation worded differently, or what does this do that previous efforts have not?
It does. It goes. It takes what is in the Communications Decency Act, which talks about the criminalization, and allows these third-party groups not to hide behind that anymore by codifying it in the criminal code in section 1591 that deals with sex trafficking. It will allow us to prosecute very specifically for those that are knowingly advertising, commercially speaking, sex trafficking victims. We have vetted this through the Department of Justice, through many of our legal groups, the Judiciary Committee, and others, and believe that we're protecting First Amendment rights and third-party users, but those that are out there making money and profiting, making millions of dollars by trafficking young girls and children and others that are held against their will be prosecuted with this law.
Is the difficulty in getting a handle on this an example of the law not keeping pace with technological developments?
Sure, look what's happened with the internet and online over time. And there are some that have been shamed out of this business, I believe, and but there are others that have not. And Backpage.com is one of those that needs to be shut down. But again, this goes after any that are commercially advertising human trafficking as it's set up in 1591.
Congressman, you talk about it's been 13 years since we've had a new legislation. What's taken so long to get something through?
Well, you know, let me be clear, they have reauthorized current trafficking legislation that are on the books, and so the reauthorizations do happen from year to year. But sometimes it just takes a force multiplier, and I will tell you, I have a number of colleagues. Some have spoke at the Ignite conference, like Congressman Ted Poe, Paulson, Smith, and Royce. I can go up and down the line of Congressman Wagner that have been working towards this legislation. We got together as a group, we took it to leadership and said it's time that we make this a legislative priority, and they couldn't agree more. And this, as I said, it is past time, but the time is now. We're going to get this done. I hope early spring, and it is my real hope, as I said, a mother of 3 children, that the week leading up to Mother's Day can be a celebration of new legislation that will end this insidious crime.
So from a practical matter, let's say there is an entity that is knowingly advertising underage prostitution. What would happen there? Would the U.S. Attorney be able to sue? Would the Attorney Generals of states be able to sue? Like, what practically would happen with that?
Absolutely. Well, there are different laws in different states that deal with sex trafficking. Some will end up in the federal courts, other in state courts, depending upon the laws that they have. I hope it serves as a deterrent. I hope they stop doing what they're doing. But if not, we will prosecute them and give prosecutors at both the state and federal level an ability to go after them in court and sue. This is a criminal violation. There will be penalties that are both fines and also time in jail, depending upon the severity and the level of the offense.
So, for example, the CEO of Backpage.com could potentially be thrown in jail if he is knowingly advertising underage prostitution.
I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I couldn't tell you exactly, Jason, but I can tell you that this is something that if they continue in this practice, we will see them in court, and a jury of their peers or a judge will make those kinds of decisions about who is causing the offense and what the penalties ultimately will be. I think we've got a packet too set out.